Tons of stuff going on today, guys. It's been a nightmare in immigration over the past week or two. June 7th date of what? Hi, Rafa. All I have is also filed congressional casework with Congressman Rue Khanna's office today, but they need 7 business days to respond. So I'm not sure what we're talking about there. Welcome to the live, guys. If you got questions, go ahead and ask now. I'm trying to get the setup right. It's not right, though. I'm using multiple streams trying to do it correctly. So it's not easy. I'm trying to do it differently this time. What was your RFE though? Wait, it's due June 7th? Yeah, you got to get that filed. Someone asked, tengo visa de turista, quiero estudiar en USA. Se puede hacer algo? Look, if you're on a tourist visa, you cannot study in the United States on an F1. That would be a violation of your tourist visa. You need to make sure, I mean, look at the new policy memo. Things are crazy. You've got to adhere to the status you're in. You can certainly apply for an F1, and you can do a change of status that way, but I doubt you're going to get that done in time. You know, oftentimes you're going to end up having to go through consular process again. Javits, I'd want to know, do you have an attorney in the first place? If USCIS is telling you to contact an attorney, that's probably something you want to do. Very curious to see your thoughts on pending naturalization cases on marriage. Look, the reality is that if you are married and you have a pending naturalization, is it based on the 3-year or the 5-year, right? If you've got a 3-year, you need to stay married, and it needs to be a legitimate marriage, and you're going to have bona fide evidence for that. If you are filing not based on marriage and it's only on 5 years, then it's not going to be that big of an issue. The reality is that we don't know what the policy memo is. And I kind of put out a video before that. If you go to my TikTok, you'll see I talked about the idea that this USCIS policy memo is saying that they will only grant adjustment of status in extraordinary circumstances. But of the interviews that have happened over the past 4 days since this memo came out, they've only asked additional 3 to 4 questions. Why didn't you do consular process? Why, where did you maintain status? Why did your status expire? Why didn't you not leave? And so I think you're going to have to beef up the case, showing hardship or reasons why you didn't leave the country. Maybe you're subject to a 10-year bar, and each case is going to be different. You need to talk with your attorney about that. Seriously, it's going to be it's going to be something that we're going to have to go deeper on each case. Hello, Carlos. Mi caso lo paró mi peticionario, pero ya fui a la embajada. ¿Qué puedo hacer? Man, ese es un problema, right? So I want why did the petitioner cancel? I would like to know that. What if my adjustment of status is in immigration court? Will it affect me? Yeah, it totally will, because immigration court is you're eligible to do adjustment of status. You're asking whether or not the new policy memo will. It's not been ruled by the BIA. I think eventually, yeah, they're going to end up addressing this in immigration court. Hopefully, we may end up with attorneys in federal litigation to challenge this. I think you have to have standing for that to happen. I haven't seen anyone being denied or heard about anyone being denied yet. So I'm not sure what's going to end up happening with that. Shannon says, I've been waiting on my 485 and I-130 for 2.5 years. Nothing back after biometrics. Is that too long? Yeah, I would say that's too long. I say anything over a year is too long, right? And so the current processing times, I think, nationwide are ridiculous, a lot more than you would think. But the reality is that if you're waiting this long, 2.5 years, and nothing has happened, you should certainly look into hiring an attorney to file a mandamus, um, which is basically filing suit in federal court and forcing the government to make a move in the next 60 days and to do something. And it doesn't guarantee you're going to get an approval. It could be a denial, it could be an approval, it could be an RFE, it could be an interview set up. And this is something we currently do in my office. I'm doing one now. So yeah, I would definitely not wait for more than 2.5 years. Now, question is, what country of origin? Is there any criminal history, or is it a question about sponsorship? Those kind of things. Savage says, I got married 5 years ago. We have kids, and I'm from Iraq, and my country is part of the ban. Yeah. Let's see. Is it possible questions about your asylum during your citizen interview? It certainly is, Raudel. They can go into your previous application, and I'm going to tell you, they're going to. And so I think in many cases, they're going to challenge the original grants of legal permanent residence. It's been adjudicated already, and I don't think this is going to be something that you have to worry about as long as there's no misrepresentation or fraud. But it's certainly they're going to ask. In fact, I've heard people may have issues. Like if you go back to your home country and you had applied for asylum and was granted asylum, right? And you go back to your home country and that comes up in your naturalization interview, you certainly could get hooked for fraud. I haven't seen any changes in terms of prolonged cases with the BIA, and the reality is because the BIA takes forever and they only decide appeals when they want to decide appeals. And currently, under this administration, there are decisions that have not been favorable. There's a list of decisions that just came down, and I was going through them. They're terrible. I know, Raudel. I remember your case, and that was a good, solid case, and so I wouldn't worry about it. Rachel's a great lawyer, and it's not a problem. Who's doing your citizenship? Do you have another attorney, or did you come back to us? Because you should have came back to us. No, I'm not looking for a virtual assistant. Yeah, Shannon, I don't see any issue. I mean, this is definitely something that I would consider filing a mandamus, and you can certainly reach out to us. You can call my office at 225-478-1111. I would not hesitate to do that. Oh yeah, yeah. Don't worry about that. Rado was certainly something that we're going to be able to help you with. Have you seen any cases of individuals who came as a toddler and had no chance, no criminal record, and followed each step to the T? Curious to see if those are being rejected as well. Are you talking about for an adjustment of status? I mean, we're literally this memo just came out Friday, so we don't have any answer. If you're on F1 and you have work OPT, you can't be denied. This Javid, so this is a lot more than we can just cover in this thing. And you got this RFE. You really need to reach out to your attorney who you originally started with. Yeah, I mean the memo is nuts right now. You know, it's got everyone scared, and I totally understand. But in my opinion, it's not the law. You don't have to show extraordinary circumstances. But what is your application for, John? If you have pending warrants in Florida, you need to take care of those because depending on the type of immigration case you have, it could certainly affect it. You can get a denial, and I'm telling you, they're denying for everything for criminal history. It's nuts right now. Let me see if I can pull this up and show you guys. I'm trying to pull this up. Look at the last, let's see if I can share this. Guys, look at the last decisions that have come out. I don't know if you can see that on this screen. I'm definitely can show it on YouTube. I don't know if it's coming up, but I mean, there are a ton of terrible decisions. A ton of terrible decisions lately. Let's see. You got here good and sufficient. This came out. Good and sufficient cause existed to revoke the prior approval of a visa petition because the record contains substantial and probative evidence of marriage fraud between the beneficiary and her prior spouse. This is them going back and revoking a previous visa petition. Here, the respondent's criminal history. This is a decision that came out either yesterday or the day before. The respondent's criminal history, including charges that did not result in a conviction, and his reluctance to accept responsibility for his criminal acts. This is someone that can be found not guilty. Outweighs the favorable factors relevant to the exercise of discretion. It's a pretty terrible decision, right? And so these decisions are coming out. This came out last month, but these decisions are coming out every day, and they're to be honest, they're terrible decisions. I'm not liking them at all. I have not really seen one favorable BIA decision come out in the last year, because every single BIA judge that was appointed by this administration. He fired every single BIA judge. And to be honest, the immigration judges that are in immigration court for the most part are scared of losing their jobs, and they're not granting. Now, I have found that the JAG judges that have been appointed, we've won cases in front of them, but for the most part, it's been a bloodbath, to say the least. And so, yeah, if you look at these opinions, I mean, they are figuring out ways to deny, in every way. We conclude that the adverse factors, particularly the respondent's criminal history, outweigh the positive factors. And, you know, depending on the type of convictions they have, I mean, he's got 2 assault, 2 battery convictions, 2003, 2007, 3 firearms convictions. That's pretty bad, right? And so sometimes we're making bad law by doing these cases with a ton of criminal history. So it's pretty bad, you know. But criminal history is certainly going to be a big factor in every single case. If you have a suspension for missing court for a suspension license, you need to hire a criminal attorney locally in your area to get rid of that suspended license. And then you better have an explanation as to why you allowed that to happen. So if one filed asylum and had a citizen child and were given EBT because of child, would that affect the asylum case? Also, if one was arrested but not convicted due to lack of evidence, that could affect it too as well. This is what I'm talking about, right? If you got criminal history, you need to be aware to be able to explain it all. It could be very much an issue. By chance, do you know what's the average wait time for BIA cases for adjustment of statuses? These decisions are scary. I agree. 8 months to a year. And 0 criminal history is great, but yeah, 8 months to a year. Hey, Chantel. All right, so I did your initial K1. We got married but divorced a year later. My ex-husband is a U.S. citizen. Let me ask you, Chantel, did we do the green card? I don't remember. I know we initially did the K1 visa, and that's good. But did we eventually get your K1 granted? I mean, your adjustment of status granted. We're not going to be talking about national interest exemptions. I'm mainly talking about just straight removal defense and adjustment of status cases. Yeah, life's journey, it's a terrible time. That's the honest truth. It's an absolute terrible time right now. To be honest, to be perfectly honest. Ugly Riff, I am located currently in New York, but our offices are in Louisiana and expanding all across the country. We're going to be opening up in Texas. We're looking to open up in Virginia, in North Carolina, in Tennessee, and we currently have an office in New York. But we practice in all 50 states. You can certainly reach out to me. Follow me here on all the pages on Instagram. Follow us on TikTok and on YouTube. It's a good question about DACA. Someone asked, do you have any ideas why renewing a DACA is so delayed? And the reality is because I think they want people to go out of status. Well, you're not really in status. You're protected under deferred action. But I think that's the case. And I think that people need to be pushing these cases, looking at congressional help, considering filing suit, those kind of things. Because if you got deferred action and you're out of a job, you have a protected interest. And that's exactly what I think it is. I would also caution someone if they have DACA with criminal history, they're looking at probably losing that. And so that needs to be something that's really factored in. And then finally, if you have a means to adjust status from that of DACA to a legal permanent resident, I would certainly look at filing adjustment of status immediately. And if you can't adjust status, let's say, because you don't have a legal entry, they're not granting any advanced paroles at the moment. I've got some that have been pending for a year. Those are not being granted. And I would be weary of people leaving on advanced parole for DACA anyway. You could certainly consular process, and that would be by maintaining your DACA deferred action application, renewing that timely, and probably renewing them early, and then filing an I-130, getting it approved, and then doing consular process. And if you have some unlawful presence, which means you were here undocumented for more than a significant amount of time, 6 months and a year after the age of 18, then you would need to file a 601A waiver. Those are taking about 23 months right now, which is significantly down from 57 months 2 years ago. Now, I'll tell you, when the 601A came out, the wait was 3 to 6 months. So they're still backed up, but 23 months is a significant drop in wait And then you would consular process, which usually takes about another 3 to 4 months, depending on the embassy. No, what can we do about this new thing? It's a policy memo, and they're saying that the policy memo is simply them emphasizing the discretionary factor, but the reality is there's nothing in the INA that talks about extraordinary circumstances for adjustment of status inside the United States. And in fact, since the 1970s, every BIA opinion has been a push towards favoring adjustment of statuses when people have family or immediate relatives, which is a U.S. citizen spouse or a U.S. citizen child, or U.S. citizen parent, I'm sorry, and so or U.S. citizen child under the age of 21. So minor crimes, if you're DACA, yeah, it's going to be an issue. Traffic, no, unless it's accumulative. Shannon, for the most part, I don't do consultation fees. This is something that, I depending on the circumstance, but go ahead and give us a call, try to set something up. Oh, RP, I'm doing well. We're just slammed, man, and it's sad. I'm glad you're already done with yours. Now you just need to wait for another couple of years to get to apply for your citizenship. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, Rise Jerusalem. If you're talking about do minor crimes affect people applying for immigration benefit, they do. Some people might think that a simple theft of a CD or something like that is no big deal, but the reality is that there are huge negative consequences of thefts, of batteries, domestic problems, drugs, for example, or like almost a zero possibility of getting an immigration benefit. Excuse me, with a prior conviction for even the most minor possession of cocaine, let's say. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to figure this out. Ja, you just need to call my office. I'm going to put my number up here. But it would be easier in your case to go ahead and send me an email to what I just put out. Do I think that there could be a pathway to citizenship for DACA? Not right now. I don't believe that. I know that many immigration attorneys have come out, talked about there being a pathway to DACA. I don't see that coming out right now. I really don't. Not with all of the removal defense we've been doing over the past 12 months, me representing people who are being detained, who are DACA. I don't see that there being a pathway to citizenship at the moment. So the USCIS policies it's not a question of being passed. It's just a policy memo that came out where they're saying they're clarifying prior rules. The real issue for us, though, is that I don't believe that is truly the real rules. Rob, if you're talking about some specific skill like that, it's certainly something that you could look into. I would definitely search for immigration attorneys that look for high-end skills. That's not something that I focus on, so I wouldn't be able to really answer. My practice is mainly focused on removal defense and USCIS applications such as family, DACA, those kind of things. Yes, Rise, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you have used drugs. I'm just simply answering the question. You're welcome. And so, yeah, a lot of people are panicking over the memo, but I mean, the reality is there's tons of issues with this memo, and I don't think it's really solid, in my opinion. I think it's ridiculous. But I mean, let me see if I can find these other decisions that came out to talk about those. I like this one. I'm being sarcastic. I hate this one, but the respondent's 3-day detention during which he was beaten once but did not sustain significant injury does not rise to the level of persecution. Well, what does? What does? Beaten once, he needs to be dead to have suffered persecution. It is absolutely ridiculous, guys. Absolutely ridiculous. They are scary times, and the reality is that I feel like this current administration is really just trying to get everyone to give up, and I think that's not the answer, is to not give up. But I do see it being very disheartening and hard to not want to give up. I've got a lot of clients that have been giving up constantly, and I understand. I mean, I represented someone last year who was picked up for no reason. He was Iranian. He was picked up out of the University of Alabama, and I kept fighting his case, trying to get him a bond. And it was the beginning of all this with the Department of State and Marco Rubio and the push anti-Middle Eastern sentiment that was coming out. And he decided to give up and take voluntary departure. And I didn't want him to. I wanted him to continue to fight, but I could completely understand being locked away for months in detention center in a remote area of Louisiana. They're not going to want to continue to fight. I totally get that. And I totally understand that. So I can't argue against that at all. Guys, any questions you got about immigration going on lately, and I will be happy to answer. Lots going on. And so I'm definitely here to answer any of that stuff. Yes, we do removal proceedings, of course. That's one of the biggest things that we do here. Thanks, Rodell, and congratulations again, man. I'm glad you're one of Rachel's favorite clients. Hello, Nimi. Guys, if you're just joining, go ahead and, if you don't mind, putting in your chat where you're watching from. I'd love to know where you guys are watching from, your location, and if you haven't followed me, go ahead and click a follow. And let's talk about what's going on. Thank you, Luciano. Well, I'm not lying to you. I mean, unless Rachel was lying to me, so there you go. Delaware, that's great. Washington, that's great. Guys, if you're just on, go ahead and click a follow. You can follow here. You can follow on TikTok. No, we don't really focus on student visas, but we do cases all over the country, but not student visas really. My removal conditions application for my green card has been under process since December of 22. We received an RFE and sent all the requested information. We haven't heard back. No, I mean, you can do a USCIS inquiry. That's one. Maybe congressional help. One of the things you might want to consider is going ahead and filing for your N400 for citizenship application. Why not? I mean, since it's been pending since 2022, which means you've been a legal permanent resident since 2020, right? And so that's over 5 years. You are definitely eligible for an N400 to file for your citizenship. So I would certainly do that and file for your citizenship. I don't see any problems with doing that. And that might actually speed it along. You would end up having your citizenship interview and questions, obviously, you need to answer, and the legal permanent residency removal conditions I-751 granted in the same day. What's going on, guys? Welcome joining me here live. Give me some likes on the screen too if you're following on TikTok, and don't hesitate to ask any questions you might have. I know it's early in the day still. Everyone's at work. Hi, I'm from Saudi Arabia. I have 2 daughters. I'm a single mom. How can I immigrate to the USA and on what visa? I'm gonna tell you right now, you can't. That's the bottom line. Like, I just don't see that happening. I hate to be a bearer of bad news, but it does not look good. The stream stuff is not working correctly. Someone asked, they're currently on F1 status through December. Their fiance is a U.S. citizen, and they're planning to get married and pursue a one-step adjustment. But they have an open criminal matter, right? Last December, they had a TRO followed by a simple assault charge against them. The charge has been dismissed. I think we need to look at the case. You know, these kind of cases, you'd have to reach out to me personally. You want to go ahead and send me an email at david@rosaslaw.com. It's put a lot of problems. The reality is, Nora Banana, there's an issue with anyone being able to immigrate from outside the United States right now. It's just like on total lockdown, in my opinion. And so I think possibly you could apply for an F1 if you want to study here, but just to come here and live, I don't see anyone coming in unless they're tied to a U.S. citizen. Ratul said, thanks. I don't want to pursue a citizenship at this point. I also submitted the inquiry, like you suggested, about 7 weeks ago. I would submit for citizenship. I'm just going to be honest, you know. That's what I would do. That's the best way to get that I-751 and the citizenship granted at the same time. What's going on, guys? My guys in TikTok land. Anybody got any questions, comments about what's going on in immigration lately? Sorry, I'm just trying to get all my stuff in order here. Here's my email, guys. I'm going to write it on here so you can see it in the chat. Go ahead and shoot me an email, david@rosaslaw.com. This is our office number as well. I'm going to try to do it better when it comes to Instagram to try to get it. You guys can share this live as well if you'd like to. All right. If I plan to marry a Filipino girl and bring her to the USA, is the quickest, easiest way the fiance visa. If you actually marry her in the Philippines, that would be the quickest way if you could go and do that. If not, if you wanted to do a straight K1, then yeah, it's probably, if you're not looking to travel, if you've seen her in the last 2 years already and you don't have any planned travel coming up, yeah, I think you should file a K1. Could you please talk about the memo and how to prepare for the marriage-based interview? Look, this is just in general, but basically the new memo has added, let me clarify. The memo is basically saying that USCIS's longstanding policy was that adjustment of statuses shouldn't happen, right? And that people should consular process. And that's not simply the case. That's not the case over the last 40 years. The BIA and multiple decisions and multiple regulations that have come out in USCIS have shown that adjustment of statuses are totally fine when you are married to a United States citizen, for example. And they've constantly figured out ways to improve that process and make it easier for people to adjust status. This memo is an uproot of that, is against that. And basically says that adjustment of statuses will only be granted under extraordinary circumstances, and that USCIS has broad discretion in denying that and forcing someone to do consular process, which I think what would end up happening in those cases is they would grant the I-130 and then deny the 485, and someone would have to then file what's called an I-824 to move the I-130 from USCIS to the National Visa Center to do consular processing. And let's say someone had an unlawful presence more than a year or came in under certain circumstances that had unlawful presence, and they'd be, or overstayed their visa, let's say, and didn't file in time, then they would be forced to file what's called an I-601A, which is a waiver. And so I think over the last week, what I've seen other immigration attorneys, in my office, we haven't had an immigration interview for USCIS, marriage-based adjustment interview, since Friday. We have some coming up in a couple of weeks, and I'll be able to report back, but we haven't had some since. So, but the three questions that I've seen most lawyers post is, why did you choose to adjust status here and not consular process? um, which was one of the main ones. And then let's pull it up just so I have it. Are there any factors preventing you from consular processing at this time? Meaning, like, what would be the factors that you can't? Hardship to your family, the wait. Some people will, in my opinion, would get hit by the bar, which is a 10-year bar. If you've been here over a year, you're going to be subject to that bar. And so that's certainly something that's going to affect people like that, right? But they may not consider that to be extraordinary circumstance or a reason for hardship. So it's kind of like almost they're trying to pull out the hardship that's required under an I-601A. Why did you not leave after your period of authorized stay expired? So, for example, maybe you're married to a U.S. citizen, you have a child, you're a female, and you just had the baby, and so you couldn't leave. Who's going to take care of the baby? Do you have any family still living here? And I think this is talking about family ties, right? So if someone's here and they've got, 4 kids, a spouse, parents, cousins, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, they've got huge family ties. And so um, both of the both of the attorneys that recently posted about this in these groups mentioned that they believed that the officers think that the directors are going to push back against Washington on this policy. Um, Also, both of the interviews, I'm reading notes, talked about um, that they were required to ask these questions, but they were going to push for a favorable approval decision. Some people are have asylum cases, let's say, right, um, and you can't go back to your home country, from Venezuela or Cuba or certain countries that you fear persecution. So that's basically what the questions are asked. And look, every day I think we're going to get more information. We're going to have to come out with more information on these. So something we're going to watch. So marrying her there is faster. I guess the question is, this is back to the person whose wife or fiance is from the Philippines. Um, Marrying her there is faster than doing it here. And the question is, um, if you can travel, I would think it's cheaper and faster to go ahead and start the I-130 process and consular process. But go ahead and yeah, you can reach out to me. You can call my office at 225-478-1111. I'm going to put it down here on both platforms. And then you can also email me directly. So yeah. The CR1 is a conditional residence card, and it depends on what's going on. It takes about anywhere from a year to 3 years. Are you married to a U.S. citizen? Someone's asking me. I didn't hear your full answer when it coming from immigrating to the U.S. from Saudi Arabia. Are you currently married to a United States citizen? What's going on in TikTok world? It's been slow today. Hey, Mark. Where'd you get on your have y'all heard you filed in October, but have you heard anything since? And Mark, you're asking, the bottom line is, let's see, I got a letter from that. Okay, so they received the I-130. That's good. So you could still get that approval, but right now there still is the pause. Now there are some lawsuits that pending. Yeah, that's a receipt number, Mark. So there are lawsuits pending. I don't know the current status of that. In fact, I saw something come up not too long. But look, take my email. If you have an attorney, then you need to get with your attorney. If you don't, this is certainly something I wouldn't mind following along with you and helping you out and figuring out the best strategy to be able to get that done. Now, if she's subject to the travel ban, then I would probably wait to have that interview set up with NVC, get the I-130 approved, and just get in line and get ready for it. But it's certainly she's going to be subject to that ban. I would love to sue him, trust me. But I think there's actually a lawsuit already pending, and so that's what you want to. That's what you want to get. No need to reinvent the wheel. Send me an email though, and I'll kind of like put you in the right direction. But thanks for that question. It's a common question now. It's your sister can file for you, but the wait times are very long. Good afternoon for everybody that's joined. In fact, I have nobody that is. Well, you didn't hire me, Mark. I mean, I'm being funny, but certainly something I'll help you out with. This is the thing in press, D. There is no historical extraordinary circumstances because it doesn't exist, right? This is something that they completely made up in the USCIS memo, and that's the ridiculous part about it, right? That's the ridiculous part about it. Let me find the memo. Let me pull it up. Sorry, guys, because I do want to talk about this adjustment of status memo because that's huge. To me, that's the most important thing that's probably come out in immigration in the last like 2 years, and that's hard to say because there's been a ton. The bond issue is one. I'm trying to find it. It's hard to find because we've been talking about it so much in my office and amongst other attorneys has been nuts. All right. So this is the memo, right? This policy reminds officers and the public that adjustment of status under Section 245 is a matter of discretion and administrative grace not designated to supersede the regular consular process. Reaffirms consistent and long-standing approach. It's The Board of Immigration Appeals has consistently characterized adjustment status as an extraordinary form of relief. Look at this case, though. This is the problem is they're citing an old law under old regulations, and that has since been not struck down, but it's not been interpreted in the same way. So I don't have any case law on that because it's never been applied that way. They would end up going home. That's where they would go. It is possible, but only if someone works at Rosas. Once they no longer work at Rosas, they have no chance. But usually people that work for me are too busy to wonder these things during the day because they're doing work. Ratul, it all depends on the situation. Send me an email, and I will certainly consider figuring that out. If you send me an email with what's going on in your case, and then I will be able to tell you whether or not that's going to cost or whether or not it's going to be a cost. Sometimes we do charge for consultations, just depending on what they are. Yes, you should call USCIS as many times as you can. To be honest, as long as I don't see anything wrong with bugging them. But obviously, they're going to tell you that if it's within processing times, you're not going to get anywhere. If a country is on the travel ban, I would think that that's a valid reason not to do consular processing, right? I mean, that makes sense. But we don't know how this is going to fall out. David, is it possible? So my husband is in the DR. We have been waiting 2 years for approval. Does this pause affect us? What we're talking about is the memo. That's what we're talking about right now is the USCIS memo. And that's not necessarily an issue with the pause, right? So we're talking about the USCIS memo, talking about extraordinary circumstances when it comes to adjustment of status. And if he's from the DR, he's not part of the 75 country ban list. So that's not gonna have anything to affect it. Dara, in order to get a work visa in the United States, you're going to have to go and be sponsored by a company. There's H-1B, L-1s, depending on your education, it's going to have to go through a company. So that's going to be the best way. You can't just apply for just a work visa to come to the United States. You got to basically be sponsored, unless you're going to be self-sponsoring, and that's going to be like highly educational and those kind of things. I hope that helps. Chantel, by the way, the rules will not affect you. Thank you for joining, guys. If you're just joining, go ahead and click a follow. Don't hesitate to follow me. I'm constantly putting out new content, and we got to get that out to you guys to tell you all the crazy stuff that's going on with immigration. I don't know what the wait times right now on but I'm saying it looks like 15 to 20 years total. So how long are I-130s and consular processing taking? It's going to depend on the country of origin, Campos, but anywhere from about 15 to 24 months, in my opinion. Yes, you need to see if a company can sponsor you, Dara. Does VAWA improve your chance in immigration court? Amila, it's not about improving your chances in immigration court. Immigration court means that they have brought removal proceedings against you, and you will be removed from this country unless you fall under certain exceptions. One exception, what you're talking about, is if you are a victim of abuse, extreme physical, mental, emotional, sexual abuse from a U.S. citizen partner, spouse, or parent, let's say, or child. And you can apply for either cancellation or removal inside immigration court or VAWA protections. But what has happened over the past 10 years is many law firms have abused that application. And so they've scrutinizing those applications a lot more difficult to win those cases in today's world. So is it easier? No. In fact, it's probably harder. But going through immigration court and removal proceedings is hard in and of itself, period. So All right. No, 15, I'm sorry, 15 to 20 months compost. I came on a P1 visa, reapplied for an extension, never got a final decision. However, I'm married to a United States citizen. We live together, run an account together, and pay utility bills. What kind of account do y'all run together? So Kelly, I'm going to tell you, Car Simunch, I can't talk about specific cases on this live. You can certainly call our office. And so Kelly, the fact that you're married to a United States citizen is potentially very helpful. You know, if you enter the United States lawfully on a P1 visa, many people in that situation may be eligible to apply for adjustment of status through their U.S. citizen spouse, even if there are later issues with status. However, I need to know a lot more before giving a specific opinion, like how did you enter? Have you ever worked without authorization? Did you leave? Did you re-enter? Why was the extension denied if it was approved, pending? You have any criminal history, prior immigration violations? So it all depends. If you guys are currently married, certainly something you can reach out, and certainly something I'd be willing to look at. But as you know, right now, the current USCIS memo is going to affect these specific type of cases. So definitely call my office, set up a meeting, or send me an email here, and certainly something I would be willing to look at. Same guys, if any of you guys are here on TikTok, you got any questions, go ahead and post them here. I'd be willing to and happy to answer any of them. Tina, I'm not really talking about employment visas on today's show. I mainly am focused on removal defense and marriage-based visas. Yeah, Kelly, go ahead and send me an email. Again, Nora, it takes years, many, many, many years. Carl, this is something, call my office. Guys, if you're just joining, go ahead and click a follow. Follow me here. Don't hesitate to share this live. Not a lot going on in TikTok world right now. Vic asked, I've been with my Filipina fiance for 9 years. We just had a baby girl 10 months ago, and I was there. And so I'm assuming he's asking what he should do. He can certainly file for K1. He's seen her in the last 2 years with the intent to marry. There's some strong evidence that they are intending to marry because they have children together, right? He can certainly do an adjustment of status, a consular process, which would be marrying there, filing the I-130, and then consular processing here. But Vic, go ahead and send me an email. Shoot me an email. Don't hesitate if you're looking for an attorney to help. Jeffrey, you're a disabled veteran currently serving in the, I don't know what A&G is, Air National Guard. I just filed for adjustment for my wife. I dated 3 years before marriage. Is there a question, Jeffrey? You're welcome, Mark. The memo could certainly complicate things. I mean, has she overstayed a visa? Is she currently in status? But being a disabled veteran, there are some qualities there. Did you use an attorney? And if you did, you need to talk with your attorney. But I would certainly be prepared for that interview to answer a lot of the questions that I talked about. Guys, if you're just joining, don't hesitate to ask questions. That's what I'm doing here, is to answer questions. Why'd you lose your first adjustment of status? They just lost it when you sent it? Do you have an attorney now, Jeffrey? Thank you, Nori Luchman. I appreciate it. Guys, if you're just joining, don't hesitate to tell me where you're watching from. Let me know if you're following us or what. Yeah, Jeffrey, I don't know. You need to get with your lawyer. That's crazy. Thank you for joining, guys. If you got any questions, go ahead and ask me now. Yes, Jeffrey, you can certainly email me. Here's my email. All right, guys, I'm going to come back live again the next couple of days, but I was really just trying to test out this new stream we got. But so thanks. If you got any questions, don't hesitate to email me and we will get back on another time.